So, welcome to the 10-minute tea break. Elizabeth Moynihan here at the New Theatre, which we will be talking about your new play that's going to be here in June called QUICKSAND.
That's right.
But before we get there, let's talk a bit about the career to date, because it is an illustrious 10-year playwriting career, I want to say?
More, probably.
More at this stage, okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people would know you as an actress, of course, as
That's
well.
right, yeah.
And more recently, from your sojourn in London, the Black Mirror and Fantastic Beasts.
That's right.
But many people would also know you from theatre over here in productions at the Gate Theatre and things like that.
And the Focus.
And the Focus, famously, yes.
1997, I think. Go back that far. I know.
I did say illustrious.
Circuitous is what I would say.
We're going to focus on the plays today. So today we're going back to Tick being your first major production in 2007. But even before that, you first start writing with Cider Queens.
That's right, yeah.
Which in 2001, I think I'm right in saying, had a reading here.
That's
on
correct.
this stage
Indeed,
in the New Theatre.
This is where it all began.
So Cider Queens starts your writing career, and that did go on to be a radio drama, I believe, a radio series. Developed Jasper Bergen in RT.
Yeah, he did the sort of dramaturgy on it, and Kevin Reynolds produced it, and it went on to win a Zebby Award. So that was my first outing, if you like.
Fantastic. Well, a very exciting first outing.
Yeah.
You know?
Beginner's luck, I think, is what I had.
Well, the beginner's luck continues, because then you go on to do Tick, which is commissioned by Tall Tales Theatre Company.
That's right. Not only did I get produced at Bewley's, but I also got published, and I was mentored by Mark O'Halloran, the amazing Mark O'Halloran, and Aideen Howard at the Abbey. So I was really nurtured and looked after, and that was an amazing experience for me.
You go on to have a very prolific kind of period. I'm going to do all the titles of Walnuts Remind Me of My Mother. This is 2009. That's on stage as part of the Gay Theatre Festival. In 2010, you have Slaughterhouse Swan, and that's actually here in a full production in the New Theatre. And 2011 then is Pinching for My Soul. And so that's, that is very prolific in terms of a play per year for 2009, 10 and 11. And all of them being produced and going on stage, you know.
Most of my inspiration is drawn from my childhood and my childhood in that town, which was, I always say my childhood ended at 7, but my creative landscape was forming as a result of being in a town in County Cork, moving from Dublin to there and being really displaced. And it was the 70s, and so there were incredible characters to draw from, some very dark characters, and that's where the inspiration for the Swan trilogy came from. So Cider Queens would be the first. It's a period piece set in the 70s about inherited alcoholism and the machinations of being trapped in a town where all the factories are closing down. And then the next one in the trilogy is Walnuts Remind Me of My Mother, which is about a young gay woman trying to, I suppose, make friends with her sexuality in a very small town, and having to move out of that town in order to really live her authentic life. And then the third piece is Slaughterhouse Swan, which is about a cross-dressing butcher and somebody who never had the courage or the facility to transition. So the only way that they could live their life, their authentic self, and be their authentic self, was when the shop door closed at the end of the day, and they got to live as a woman, privately, secretly.
And Pinching for My Soul then, what was that? That was 3 monologues, so that kind of shifted form a bit for you as well, didn't it?
Because I would say that I've been lucky enough to be of the generation of playwrights who still got to write the classic conventional 2-act play with a big cast. But then as time moved on and we moved pre and post recession, producers were constantly saying, oh no, the cast is too big, two-handers or monologue, the monologue play. Yeah. And it was 2010, wasn't it, I think, when Pinching for My Soul found a home at the Focus Theatre. And that was me trying to push the boundaries in terms of form from me. You know, I didn't invent the form, obviously, but it was new to me, and it felt like when I was writing it, felt like I was inventing it, because I'd never written like that before.
I noticed that Slaughterhouse Swan, which was the play here at the New Theatre, that you actually directed that one yourself. Now, but also it's the only play of your own that you've directed. So was that kind of a bit of a learning curve doing that?
Absolutely. I'm a reluctant director. I never want to do it again. I didn't want to do it for that play. I don't think it might be all right for other writers, but not for me. I'm not the kind of creative that is comfortable directing my own work. I love to work in a collaborative environment. I love everybody doing their job. Like I never perform my own work either.
Did you kind of have a different relationship with the text then?
Yeah.
You know, because that shift of focus from being the writer in the rehearsal room to the director in the rehearsal room.
Well, you have split focus, I think, because you have to have your director's hat on and serve your cast. And then you have to have your writer's hat on and say, be willing to relinquish lines and cut lines that you know you can't fight for. If you're just the writer, you can fight for them. But when you're the director as well, you can't really, you just go, oh, it's not working in the actor's mouth, we have to get rid of it.
So do you think that changed your process as a writer then, having had that experience as a director?
I think it fed into it to a degree, but I always at pains to serve the actors as a writer, because I'm an actor myself. And I know there's nothing worse than speaking text that just is not very good, or doesn't work, or is too wordy, or is too much the writer and not enough of the character. QUICKSAND, the one that we're doing here, that you've supported me on and taken me through the 3 or 4 drafts that we've done together, that has its genesis back in as a submission I did for Fish Amble, and they didn't want it, and it was rejected at an embryonic stage.
That would have been the Play for Ireland programme, wouldn't it? So I think there was like very, very many people who would have submitted ideas through that process.
Eventually, I feel with my work, it does get an audience, but it's a bit more circuitous, as I said before, than a lot of people's journey. And I would envy their journey. You know, they seem to kind of go straight into the Abbey or straight into Fish Amble producing them, and I haven't had that experience.
And just in terms of QUICKSAND, the process for you and how you actually really start, like, you know, where that idea comes from initially, and then are you a person, you know, who just thinks about it for a long time and then goes to the desk, or are you a person who sort of like is a note taker? You know, what way does it work for you from initial conception to that first draft, really? You know.
Well, usually it's a newspaper article or the line of a song, or both. It could be just a moment in time. Tick, for instance, was born out of I was crossing traffic lights at Christchurch, and a squally shower came down. And at the first line of the play, squally, squally, I hate to hear the servants use that word, squally. And so I went, why did that come into my head like that? And then I saw a dead bird on a strand in Kerry, and that was the next scene. And it's images and newspaper articles, and I'm very interested in, Morrissey from the Smiths says, I'm interested in other people's suffering, and I think that's at the core of all of my work.
Well, certainly thematically, like your work is very character-driven, and a lot of those characters tend to be somewhat outsiders within the worlds that they're living in.
I felt like that as a child and growing up, always a sense of displacement, always a sense of not quite fitting in. And I think a lot of creative people are like that. A lot of people who are drawn to the arts and writing are the kind of kid that doesn't fit in.
And with Quicksand, which had a broader character base in its original conception, it's now kind of slimlined into, you know, a very tight focus on the two central characters.
Yes.
So in that frame, like, how would you characterise the two characters in Quicksand?
A mother and son who are in a very unhealthy, dysfunctional relationship, which is something I relate to. But it's also dealing with somebody who has intellectual challenges, and the only safety is inside the four walls of their home.
I mean, you say it's unhealthy, which is absolutely true, but it's incredibly loving. It's intensely loving, you know? So, and there's a lot of kind of humour in that push-pull between them that comes through, I think, in the play. You seem to have blended this thing of very quick-fire dialogue, very, you know, almost naturalism, with lyrical, intensive monologues really well in this one.
Thank you. I love the idea of that really stylized work where you have the conventional duologues, and then through lighting you snap out of the duologues, and the audience gets to hear the inner monologue of the character.
Yeah.
As it's spoken, the thoughts are spoken. Because me walking around in the world, I'm having a conversation, and all the while I'm thinking my own thoughts at the same time. And that's kind of what I'm trying to portray on stage. And also I'm Stanislavski trained from the Focus Theatre, 14 years at that theatre. And Deirdre O'Connell trained me as an actor, and as a Stanislavski trained actor I write very much from that discipline. And we talk about the inner monologue and the subconscious in my training. So I think that's very much in evidence in my work.
Well, we're delighted to have you back at the
you,
new
thank
theatre.
you. So am I.
After a hiatus of some years, and to entice you back from London as well, you know.
And I'm very glad to be home. It's been a very emotional few weeks, you know, sitting on the stage now here with you and working with you, getting to know you, and I'm back here working with Anthony Fox. It's just amazing. It just feels like home. And with the demise of Focus Theatre, I haven't had an artistic home for a number of years, and maybe this will be my new one.
So thank you for the time, and thank you for being with us. And it just remains to be said that Quicksand is on in June, and we hope you all come and see it. Everything we've been talking about. Okay. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for the tea. Cheers.